How's it going, speedsters? Welcome back to a brand new Flash Season 7 video. I've been wanting to make this kind of little update video for some time, but as you could tell, over the past kind of week or so, I uploaded so much content coming out of DC Fandom, you know, whether that's to do with the Batman, the movie side of things, since that was the main event, because DC Fandom, as a lot of you may know, has been split into two events now, and we're probably going to get a lot more of the stuff I'm talking about in this very video on September 12th, which is mainly dominated by a lot of DC TV things. So in this video, I want to talk about, obviously, Godspeed being one of the main villains of Season 7, which isn't a huge surprise, and we'll dissect and break down what the heck came out of that panel with that, as well as a couple of new updates for Season 7 that I think you guys will find cool, and of course some speculation that we're going to get into, because hey, The Flash Season 7 is coming slowly but surely, and hey, touch wood, hopefully this season will be the best season we are getting out of The Flash, or have gotten out of The Flash in the past few years. So one favor from you guys, I would really appreciate a like on this video if you are literally watching this right now. Click that thumbs up button, as well as going to the top pinned comment and checking out the links. I just want to remind everyone that now I put my links in the top pinned comment, whether that's to social media like Twitter or my merch store, where I've got some new amazing Boba hats, if I do say so myself. But check it out, guys. But let's just dive straight into this. So yet again, to just reiterate very, very quickly, the panels that we got, and I believe that was just for Titans, and you know, with Titan Season 3, we got announcements like Red Hood coming, and officially knowing now that Barbara Gordon is coming, even though I was reporting that news a long time ago now. And with The Flash, we got some new tidbits as well, but as I was kind of leaning into, the panel seemed like it was cut at certain points. It was very obvious if you go back and watch it, and this is probably indeed because we are getting the extended panel on September 12th, as well as all the new panels that we didn't get to see at the previous DC Fandom event, or the first one, should I say, due to that mainly being dominated by a lot of wicked movie stuff. Now, before the panel got onto the main juicy stuff, which they very so subtly segued into, it wasn't like, oh, by the way, the main villain. Like, I feel like they may do that on September 12th. They were talking about little things, little tidbits, looking back on some of the events of Season 6, which was expected because, you know, it was kind of like a bit of a recap, and that will be the same for more and more of the DC TV panels that you guys are looking forward to on September 12th. But, speedsters, let's get into the real, tangible, freaking Speed Force news of this video, and that was very interestingly spoken about at the panel, and I quote, "Big bads for Season 7. What was it about Godspeed that you're like, oh, there's something there for that?" And I don't know about you guys, but that kind of spells out that Godspeed is low-key confirmed to be the Flash Season 7, probably Part 1 main big bad, if you will, and we'll get into the villainous ways that they could do Godspeed in a second. But once again, I do want to emphasize and reiterate that it still almost felt chopped up. Like, it felt like Eric Wallace had more to say, but they kind of cut it, and I'm sure that's going to be revisited upon in the extended panel, where they just dive a lot deeper into Season 7 things, and hopefully we'll get maybe even more of a tease for other things. But Eric Wallace says, and I quote, in a direct response to when the interviewer asked Big Bads for Season 7, what was it about Godspeed that you're like, oh, there's something there for that? I want to make sure that new fans, especially new young fans who are reading the comic book right now, are welcomed to the show. So it's not just Silver Age villains and Bronze Age villains. There might be a young girl or a young boy who is reading these Flash comics right now and going, where is my villain? My generation's villain. So it was kind of obvious with all the setup in the Flash Season 6, you know, whether that was in Episode 1, where Barry was facing the clones, and he had been throughout the summer between Season 5 and 6, and then we got more emphasis on that with the Godspeed episode in Season 6, where it kind of concluded with the one who sent me wants infinite velocity and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of fans were speculating that is the real Godspeed. It seemed as though we were at least going to get, at the very minimum, like a two-parter episode, but it does indeed seem that it's going to be tied into one of the two graphic novel formulaic approach to villains this season that started with Eric Wallace's new implementation of that in Season 6. However, guys, Eric Wallace did say, and I reported on this from an article in a previous video, that even though the graphic novel approach is staying and like it's going to be a thing again in Season 7, he says the approach to it may not be the way the fans expected. And I did go on to speculate about, even though we're getting a shorter season, does this mean we're going to get like maybe more than two graphic novel villains? Personally, despite how that will make the story feel a lot more cohesive for me, and out of the mouth from Danielle Panabaker herself, something that I feel very in line with in terms of the Flash's approach with what Eric Wallace has brought in with graphic novels. It feels like, well, a lot more of a cohesive story with a lot less filler to get to those main plot points of an episode. But 3 villains, I am speculating of what Eric Wallace said. Don't let me reiterate that. He didn't say that. He just said it may not be the way fans, kind of expect this season with the graphic novel approach or the way it's structured. I just feel like 3 villains would be a bit too much, but we're going to have to wait and see. But let's dive into this whole Godspeed stuff and how I think that will pertain to the larger picture, because as a lot of you may know, even though Godspeed did seemingly start this way, he ultimately is somewhat of an anti-hero in the comics as of right now. But as I always kind of say, guys, this is an adaptation, it's copy and paste. They've changed many a thing up in the past with the Flash adaptations from the comic book villains, and it wouldn't remotely surprise me if they just go full out villain consistently for Godspeed. But we'll dive into some of those predictions in a few minutes. But first of all, I wanted to touch upon the Flash Season 7 synopsis, because I think we can't forget about the Reverse Flash cliffhanger, because I'm still wondering what is going on with that. I'm not saying it's still going to happen, because there was meant to be a Thawne cliffhanger, but let's get into the actual Flash Season 7 synopsis, because it's kind of strange if Godspeed is indeed the first graphic novel villain, or first half villain of Season 7, because the very concluding lines of the Season 7 synopsis goes as follows. Flash will ultimately defeat Mirror Master, obviously, but in doing so, he'll also unleash an even more powerful and devastating threat on Central City. So one could think maybe that's Godspeed, or, as I've touched upon in the previous video, or what if this is somehow they're gonna do their rendition of Cobalt Blue. But then it goes on to say, one that threatens to tear his team, and very, very oddly, specifically, they dash this part out in the synopsis, and his marriage dash apart. So, I don't know, the reason why I linked that to the Thawne cliffhanger, the original intended Thawne cliffhanger of Season 6, is because, well, maybe you could argue Thawne, with whatever cliffhanger they were doing there, which one would have to assume would be his tachyon freaking Reverse Flash energy possessing some new host or something, and that finally coming to fruition, because they definitely did hint at that. And when, they talk in an interview about how there was supposed to be a Thawne cliffhanger, well, it kind of makes one think that Thawne would have found a new host, but unbeknownst to Team Flash. And that'd be an awesome way to be like, oh my god, Team Flash don't know who this new Thawne is, but the audience does, and I wonder how this is going to factor in. And also, of course, with Flash ultimately defeating Mirror Master, but in so he'll unleash an even more powerful and devastating threat, one that threatens to tear his team, of course, just like any villain, but specifically his marriage. That doesn't sound Godspeedy to me. Maybe you could argue they might, for some reason, implement a story where Godspeed knows the identity of the Flash, but it still feels more Cobalt Blue-y than anything, because of the whole Eddie Thawne thing that fans have wanted for years and years and years. Whether that's him being Cobalt Blue, coming back in some weird-ass storyline where he's seething at the fact that Barry is in the position he's in now. I don't think Eddie would even come to that conclusion anyway, especially after his sacrifice, but it would be probably written with the fact that maybe he's got this corrupt kind of thing going on with his mind that kind of, makes his perception a lot more skewed. But, without getting too far down the rabbit hole of speculation there, this is why it's still a little bit, ambiguous to me, because it's like, well, I know we're getting Godspeed now. I mean, for crying out loud, they low-key confirmed that when they said big bads for Season 7. What was it about Godspeed that you're like, oh, there's something there for that? That is literally Godspeed being one of the graphic novel villains. So I don't know what they're doing with Thawne, whether they intend to reserve that Thawne cliffhanger for a future story arc, maybe even for one of the back half villains of Season 7, or whether we're getting 3 villains. Let's just entertain that idea. We could get a Godspeed arc, we could get a something else arc, whether that's a continued Black Hole thing or some other kind of Silver or Bronze Age villain, or whether it's another rebirthed villain, if you will, and then maybe conclude Season 7 with the original Thawne cliffhanger, and going into the Flash Season 8 with I don't know, as Grant Gustin said himself, tying a bow on the Reverse Flash story as a whole. That would be wicked, but it's so ambiguous. You have to think, well, what were they going to do at the end of Season 6 going into Season 7? But due to the whole pandemic and all of that stuff, stuff. Obviously, things have had to be amended and kind of weaved around from what they were originally going to be for the show. No matter what, though, I do think, and I wasn't one to say this but around 3 years ago, but it's been some time now. We're going into The Flash Season 7. I think no matter what, it's time for speedsters to take the main stage. Like, you know, when you go into a festival, you have the main stage, these other stages. The speedsters, rightfully so, after The Flash Season 1, 2, and then, you know, technically with Savitar in Season 3, have had a dominant kind of presence in the Flash series. But now, it's been a few years, it definitely is time to bring, whether it's a speedster or powers that mimic a speedster, for example, Cobalt Blue, or some other villains that people are referencing, such as Regine, and how that links to Black Hole, which I'm definitely, and I've spoken about in previous videos, not disregarding. But no matter what, it's time to mimic some kind of villain like that again, because I think interest did dip. No matter what you may think about how good Clifford DeVoe was, but that yet again, other aspects of Season 4 kind of let it down, and then Season 5 with Cicada, and then Season 6, you know, Bloodwork was awesome, but it's still not maintaining, you know, and speaking to many Flash fans on a regular basis, it's still not maintaining the interest of Season 1 and Season 2, or even Season 3, despite what you may think of Season 3. So we need some kind of threat to Barry that is mimicking Speed at the very least. I still would love a Cobalt Blue storyline, whether it is way more original than what a lot of us fans are coming up with Eddie Thawne coming back. I'm very intrigued still about the whole and his marriage apart, to tear his marriage apart aspect of Season 7. I don't know if they're going to pertain that to Godspeed. Very interesting to consider that. But also, you know, graphic novel approach, we are getting more villains. And I'm so intrigued about the Reverse Flash cliffhanger. There's, of course, a future story for him, and there always will be, considering he didn't die and his little freaking possessed energy tachyons were still floating around there. You would have to think that the closing scene, or one of the closing scenes for Season 6, was for Thawne and his energy, his negative tachyons, to inhabit a new person. Just imagine this, like, I'm going to try and set the stage. One of the final closing scenes of The Flash Season 7, Episode 22, bear in mind it ended a lot earlier than that, but let's assume the pandemic never happened. We get a scene, a post-Flash card end scene of this person wandering around, whether it's a character we're familiar with or not, so I'm saying probably not Harrison Wells or one of the Welleses. And you see these little negative tachyons, I don't know, the way I'm framing it is a bit cheesy, but they're floating around and then they inhabit this person. And then lo and behold, we see the eyes, and then we get, I don't know, a Merry Christmas. I'm joking, but some kind of like line that is very cliche to the Reverse Flash. Probably maybe no words at all. That would maybe be a lot more effective. The eyes go bright red. Team Flash, having freshly defeated Mirror Master, the prior scenes to this would have been them at Star Labs all celebrating or whatever, but unbeknownst to them, but very known to the audience, we would have seen the rebirth, if you will, of Eobard Thawne. But that is kind of cliche. I know some fans live and ride and die for Eobard Thawne, and we've had a bit of him in the show by now, and some fans might not like that, which is why I'm still game for Godspeed, and very excited to see with whatever they do with him in next season, whether they go the anti-hero route eventually, whether he eventually helps out with Team Flash. I would prefer if he is still a villain, like through and through, no matter what they take from the comics. It doesn't always have to be an adaptation strictly adhering to the traditionalist canon there. They can be a bit more innovative, just like what they have with the prior villains of the Flash. I think that's very self-explanatory with what I'm trying to convey. As for Regine, whatever way you want to pronounce his name, I've always thought that maybe they could make the Black Hole organization bigger than, you know, just what they've done in the show, well beyond Joseph Carver. So, you know, he's just a lackey to this grander design, and a lot of people were thinking that that could have been the real Godspeed, but then some other people were speculating, what if Godspeed clones are just under the control of someone like Regine? It's possible. You know, whether the Black Hole have been working in the shadows for a long time, ever since the Speed Force storm at the end of Season 3? I can't even remember now. My brain is getting away from me from that. You know what I'm trying to say, though. There's a lot of different avenues they can go down, and I'm dead excited, but most importantly, I really, really, really want to know your thoughts and ideas as to everything I've spoken about with that down in the comments below. And one last final little thing. In the panel that we did see with the Flash in the first DC Fandom event, Grant Gustin was asked when will we get to see the Flash in the iconic gold boots. And he says, you know, this might be a question for me, but really it's for Eric, because I don't know if this is saying too much, but if it was up to me, it would have been 2 seasons ago. So, you know, considering we didn't get any response from Eric in that moment, and this is what I mean about the cutscenes from the panel that we're likely going to get from the extended panel, I think he would say that they are coming. With Grant Gustin saying, I don't know if this is saying too much, but it would have been 2 seasons ago, implies that, well, it should have been done already, so it kind of is happening, and, you know, but we're going to have to ultimately wait and see, and there's so much missing from that panel that I'm looking forward to covering coming out of September 12th, so make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel with notifications on to make sure you don't miss out on a single update for The Flash Season 7. But if you enjoyed this video, guys, I would really appreciate a like. Thank you so much for those of you who do go ahead and do that. If you want to stay up to date with me more, you can follow me on Twitter, or if you have Instagram, it is truly just /BobaTalks or @BobaTalks. I think you can figure out which one pertains to which one. Also, a big shout out to my patrons appearing on screen right now. Those guys really do help fuel the content that I create on the channel, as well as the join button members. If any of you are interested in becoming just like one of these guys and helping fuel the content, well, I do have a Patreon link in the top pinned comment, and there is a big fat join button on the channel. But other than that, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you speedsters in the next video. Goodbye.